going on, y'all? Little Bunk here, Vicious Fishing Pro staff. Today I'm going to give you 3 summertime setups with 3 different line options and give you the application and why you should be throwing them. Let's get it. Alright, first off, let's get into the Vicious Fishing Ultimate Mono. This is 17 pound, low vis green. This is my go-to. Now, I know everybody's on the Fluoro kick and everybody's on the Braid situation, but there's always a time and place for mono. If you're not trying to break the bank and you're on a budget, get mono. If you're using top water, like I'm about to show you here, my setup for top water, or when I'm using a high vis braid so I can see, I can line watch, I'll put on a mono leader. And this is what we have today. For my spinning rod setup, I have a 7-foot medium heavy power fast action, and I'm running 30 pound Vicious Fishing no fade high vis yellow braid. That's so I can line watch and I can see my line. But I don't want the fish to see it, and also since this rod's pretty stiff, I want some stretch, and that braid ain't gonna give me no stretch. So what I have here is about 1.5 to 2 foot 17 pound Vicious Ultimate Mono leader going to my young breaker shad with a 3/0 Gamakatsu red EWG hook. So that little bit of mono on there gives me just a little bit of stretch. So easier to land that way. It's not going to, you don't have the tendency to rip it out of your mouth with the braid since there's no stretch. But the mono, if I'm using a whopper plopper in the summer, anything with a treble hook, okay, pretty much, unless I'm running a moderate rod. If I have a moderate action rod, then it really doesn't matter too much. It's not as crucial. But if you have a stiff rod, give yourself some stretch in the game and put you a mono leader on there. But anything with a treble hook, like a whopper plopper, I'm usually 9 times out of 10 I'm using a mono leader. Anything that I want to, I don't really want it to sink too fast, or I want it to float more, I'm using a mono leader. On your spinning applications, it's okay to go straight mono, right? But when you get into your bait casters, it's okay to put a mono leader on whatever you're throwing, whether it's Fluoro or Braid, but don't put straight mono on your bait caster. It's just a recipe for disaster. The mono has memory, right? Along with the stretch, it has memory. So if you get one bird's nest, it's very hard to keep it straight or keep it on there from then on. It's just going to keep happening because it has the memory. It got tight and it's got loose, and it's very hard to get it tight again. But yeah, so the mono 17 pound is my go-to. I use 14 as well, 20 and up for my saltwater fishing. All right, the second setup is going to be fluorocarbon. Now, summertime, you could be drop shotting. So I got the 10 pound fluoro here for the drop shot. In the summertime, you could be trying to catch them bass that are off that ledge that went deep again. So you might be cranking or deep cranking. Get you some 10 pound fluoro. In this situation here, I have a 6'6" medium heavy fast action, but even though it's a fast action, this rod is pretty bendy. It's like a moderate. It's like a fast moderate, I guess you would say. It's not quite moderate, but it's in the middle of a fast and a moderate. And here we have 14 pound Vicious Fishing 100% fluoro, 100% Japanese fluoro, 14 pound test. Here we got the Booyah Mobster swim jig with a Yum Pulse swim bait on there, paddle tail. And this is straight up 14 pound fluoro on here. And with this setup, with the 14 pound fluoro, I can do my swim jigging, I can do regular jigging, I can do my Texas rig worms, my Texas rig crawls and creatures. I can do a bunch of things with this setup right here. Alright, so a tip here to save money. When you're spooling up your bait casters or even your spinning, if you're going to go fluoro or braid when you're spinning, first start off with some cheap mono. If you got some cheap mono laying around, try to match it. You know, if you're going to do 10-pound test, then do 10-pound mono. If you're going to do 12, 14, whatever. But start it off with mono. You're going to save yourself some money between the fluoro and the braid. So, you know, when you're most of the time you're not casting the spool your whole reel. So if you got a 100-yard reel, spool the first 25, 30 yards with mono, and then do yourself a favor, go to YouTube, whatever. I'll be posting soon some knots. Look up the Alberto knots, my favorite, and you'll just connect the mono backing to Alberto knot to your whatever it's going to be, fluoro or braid. Number 3 would be some braid. This right here is Vicious Fishing No Fade Braid, 50-pound. High vis yellow. I use 30-pound on my spinning applications, and I use 50-pound, whether it's yellow, green, or blue, or they got the new stuff out. They got black, they got pink, but I used the 50 on some heavy flipping. So, third setup we got a bait caster here. I got a 6.6 medium heavy fast. Now this thing is just the tips bends. This thing is pretty stiff. This is pretty much my top water setup. So here we have the 50-pound in the blue, 50-pound Vicious Braid in the blue, and I got a weighted belly hook, a 1/4 ounce weighted belly hook, and I got a Yum tiptoed on here for my top water. Now, since I'm going top water, and I'm going to probably be in some nasty stuff at the top of the water, is probably going to have some scum. It's going to have some pollen. It's going to have some laydowns. It's going to have some, lily pads. I'm just going straight braid. Sometimes I do put a fluoro or mono leader to break up that blue, or like I said, sometimes to get you some stretch or whatever the case may be. But in this case, I'm throwing straight braid. Because I know whatever I'm throwing this in, it's going to be nasty, and I'm going to have trouble getting them out with anything less. Alright, there you have it. Your 3 summertime setups. 3 different setups, 3 different lines. We had the Vicious Fishing Ultimate Mono. We had the Vicious Fishing 100% Japanese Fluorocarbon. And we had the Vicious Fishing No Fade Braid. Check them out. GetVicious.com. Follow them at Vicious Fishing on IG and Facebook and YouTube. I'm Little Bunk. Follow me at littlebunk_gcore. And remember, no matter what, gotta keep on rolling.